not tired because you work too much. You're tired because every day you abandon yourself just to be accepted. And no one ever told you how violent that is. There's a moment, usually late at night, when the noise dies, and what's left is a silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like a scream no one else can hear. Because everything around you is fine, but something inside you isn't. You've followed the rules. You've done what you were told. You've been quiet when you should have spoken, agreeable when you wanted to burn it all down. And now, you're wondering why you feel like a ghost in your own life. Be normal. That's the real commandment of the modern world. Don't feel too much. Don't want too much. Don't stand out. If you stay within the line, they won't punish you, but they'll never see you either. You learned early that approval is a kind of currency, and the price was always you. Your fire, your edge, your questions. And maybe now you're realizing the life you built was never really yours. It was safe, it was expected, it was enough to not get hurt, but never enough to feel alive. The scariest kind of fear is the one that wears a mask. It doesn't show up as panic. It comes dressed as common sense, as duty, as tradition, as someone else's idea of what a good life should be. But deep down, it's still just fear. Fear of being free. Because freedom doesn't come with applause. There's no manual. No one claps when you start saying no. Nietzsche saw it clearly. The morality of the herd is a morality of weakness. It teaches you that obedience is noble, that being good means suffocating quietly. And so you start parroting those voices without knowing. I can't do that. My parents wouldn't approve. What if I fail? What will they think of me? Each of those thoughts is a leash, a silent chain. And the question is, how long are you going to let other people decide who you get to be? The herd feels safe, but the price is brutal. You stop being the owner of your own life, and when you finally take that first step out, everything starts to break. The things that once made sense feel hollow. The roles you played don't fit anymore. Even your kindness starts to feel like a performance you forgot how to stop. And then the forest fights back. You become the outsider, the black sheep, the problem. And the pain is real. It's not poetic. It's a raw, personal exile. You feel like you've betrayed something sacred. Your family, your roots, your culture. But then it hits you. Most of them only stood beside you because you played along, because you nodded, because you made yourself small enough to fit inside their comfort. Now that you're not pretending, the silence gets loud, and that silence carries a message. We only love the version of you that obeys. Nietzsche knew this exile. The thinker must walk alone. And this is the price of truth. Not applause, not liberation, solitude. Even surrounded by people, you feel the desert growing inside you. A vast, dry space where lies used to bloom. There's a kind of death that doesn't leave a body behind. You stay alive, but stop existing. You become a ghost in your own story, present in flesh, absent in thought. And the worst part? You don't even notice it at first. You try to share something real, a thought, a fire, a question. But what you meet is not curiosity. It's a wall. Blank eyes, forced smiles, the silence of people who've already given up on themselves. So you start shrinking, not because you have nothing to say, but because you realize most people don't want to wake up. They want noise, not depth. They want agreement, not truth. Nietzsche didn't romanticize this part. He knew that walking away from the herd comes with a cost. Comfort, belonging, applause, gone. And in their place, desert. But this desert isn't empty. It burns. And in that burning, something sacred is born. Clarity. Solitude is brutal. But it's not a punishment. It's a summons. A forced confrontation with everything you've avoided. Your fears, your needs, your real self. There is no one left to impress, no one left to lie to. And finally, you begin to see who you are without the mirrors. That's where healing begins. That's where truth starts to move through your bones. And right when you start standing tall in your silence, they come. At first, gently. It's just a phase. You're overthinking. You're making life too hard. But when they realize you're not going back, the tone shifts. Their concern becomes control. Their advice becomes threat. You are no longer a wanderer. You are a danger. Not because you hurt anyone, but because you've chosen something terrifying, to live without their permission. Your freedom exposes their cage, and that makes you intolerable. You'll feel it in the way your friend stops replying without reason, in the quiet disappointment in your mother's eyes, in the casual remarks that carry razor blades. You've changed too much. Don't lose yourself. These ideas, be careful. They call it love. But what they really mean is, you're reminding me of everything I never dared to be. The herd attacks in poetry. It speaks in softness, but it cuts deep. They say they want the best for you, but what they really want is for you to come back. Back to sameness, back to predictability, back to a life where no one has to question their own choices. Your light offends them because it shows where they dimmed. Your questions are dangerous, not because they're wrong, but because they might be right. And when convincing you fails, they reject you. And when rejection fails, they start to hate. That hatred is a signal. Yes, it hurts. Of course it does. But it means you're no longer hiding. If the herd starts fearing your freedom, it means you're finally free enough to scare them. You become a threat just by existing. You prove, without even trying, that it's possible to live without chains. And that terrifies those who've made peace with their own. But here's the catch. The fear that rises in your chest isn't always yours. It was planted, projected, passed down from those who never dared to leave. And now you have to choose. Will you carry their fear like it's yours? Or will you walk anyway, alone if necessary, knowing that your freedom is a light for those still trapped in the fog? At first you try to explain. You fight to be understood. You want them to see that you're not crazy, that your hunger for truth isn't a phase. But over time, something shifts. You realize they don't want to understand. They want their world to stay small, safe, intact. And you, with your uncomfortable questions, are a crack in their illusion. So you stop talking, not out of fear, but out of clarity. Silence becomes your weapon, a shield forged from conviction. You no longer need their applause to validate your steps. You no longer need to shout your truth at ears that were never open. Nietzsche said, "Maturity begins when we stop trying to convince others." And that's when the burden begins to fall off your shoulders, because you finally see it. Your truth doesn't need to be accepted to be real. There's a kind of silence that is submission, the silence of those who swallow their pain to avoid conflict, But then there's another kind, a deeper, stronger silence. The silence of someone who doesn't need to prove anything anymore, who knows that truth isn't found in arguments. It's found in how you live when no one claps. And if you've ever felt this, you know exactly what I'm saying. You become more careful with your presence, more selective with your words. You stop offering pieces of your soul to people who only want your performance. Because peace is worth more than approval, and silence becomes the armor of those who've carved their own path, with scars instead of maps. And in the end, silence speaks louder than anything you could have said, especially when the sweetest words hide the cruelest intentions. The forest knows how to cloak rejection in kindness. It says, "We love you," while secretly hoping you'll break. It calls you family and celebrates your failure in silence. It smiles while praying you'll come back to the right path. Not because it loves you, but because your freedom is too loud. That's not care. That's resentment dressed as virtue. Nietzsche understood this poison well. He saw how rejection becomes the herd's most seductive trick. Because it doesn't look like an attack. It looks like love. But behind that smile is the unspoken truth. I couldn't be free, so neither should you. They don't hate you because you failed. They hate you because you didn't. Because your very existence exposes the prison they refuse to see, and they'd rather suffer in silence, as long as no one escapes. But now, you have. They'd rather call you arrogant, selfish, lost. They'd rather point fingers than look in the mirror. Maybe you felt it, that wave of judgment, the moment you made a real change. When you moved cities, switched careers, ended relationships, chose something new. Suddenly the comments came. Wow, you think you're better than everyone? You'll regret this. You're being reckless. And sometimes, the rejection came from those you loved most. That's when it cuts deepest. Not because their words are true, but because you expected support and got poison instead. That's why opening your eyes to rejection isn't about becoming bitter. It's about becoming wise, to know the difference between honest advice and hidden control, between genuine love and a performance meant to keep you small. Rejection is control wearing makeup. Those who never dared to be free want to keep others trapped, not out of malice, but out of fear. And the best response is brutal in its simplicity. Stay free, don't explain, don't justify, don't beg for approval from people who never had the courage to become what you're becoming. Because when you live outside their framework, something disorienting happens. The maps disappear. The old rules dissolve. And there is no new manual waiting. Suddenly, you're in the dark, no signs, no compass, no script. Every step becomes a risk, and that's when the real challenge begins, creating your own ethics, forging values not inherited, not borrowed, but born from your own blood and experience. Nietzsche called it the revaluation of all values, the transvaluation, the sacred act of rewriting meaning from within, of undoing the conditioning, the binaries, the handed-down truths. It's not easy. Rejection offers clarity. What's right? What's wrong? What's success? What's failure? It gives you ready-made boxes to live in. But once you stop playing that game, you realize those boxes were never real. They were just tools to keep you tame. Outside rejection, the old categories fall apart. There is no good or bad in the way you were taught. There are only real questions. What makes me grow? What keeps me aligned? What makes me feel alive? That's the scariest part, and also the most beautiful. You stop living by someone else's standards. You start touching life with your own hands. You learn that some mistakes are just detours, that some failures are sacred, that some sins are just misunderstood acts of liberation. The weight of traditional morality dissolves, and in its place, something real is born. An ethic made of skin and scar and breath. A code no one else may understand. And that's okay. This path is lonely, but it is also powerful. Because when your values are carved from your own experience, you become unforgettable. Criticism doesn't shrink you. Pressure doesn't bend you. You don't live for invisible audiences. You live to stay loyal to yourself. And in the end, you realize the only approval that ever mattered was your own. Being free sounds like a dream until you actually become free. At first, it's a high, a rush. You feel unstoppable, like the world has finally opened its gates and no one's holding you back. You taste possibility like fire in your chest. No one's telling you what to wear, what to believe, who to be. Everything feels light, limitless, and then it shifts. What once felt like freedom starts to feel like weight. Because real freedom doesn't come with a safety net. It doesn't offer comfort. It doesn't give you a manual. It demands everything from you. Every choice, every mistake, every consequence. Yours. No one else to blame. No more pointing at society, parents, teachers, governments. Just you. Face to face with life. Raw, undeniable. And that responsibility, it's terrifying. Because when anything is possible, everything can go wrong. No one's holding your hand, no applause, no instruction. You become your only compass. And for many, that level of freedom feels like falling. Nietzsche knew this. He said few people can bear the nightmare of true liberty. Because it isolates you. It strips away certainty. It makes you question everything, especially yourself. Freedom is an open field, but that same field can also feel like a void, an abyss without end. But that's where the glory hides, in the unknown. Because to be free, despite the fear, despite the chaos, is to be fully alive. Every step is yours. Every victory comes from your own will. Every wound is part of the price you chose to pay. You live without labels, without permission, without audience. It's not perfection, it's rebellion and beauty. You are not understood, and that's okay. You are not celebrated, and that doesn't shrink you. You simply are, and that's enough. Then something clicks. You stop waiting for someone to tell you what to do. You look back and realize there are no masters, no perfect guides, no right way. Even the people who seem to have it all figured out are just hiding their fear better. And when that truth lands, something radical happens. If no one knows the way, then you'll make your own. Nietzsche called it the Übermensch, not a superhuman in strength, but someone who creates meaning from the inside out, someone who no longer needs the rules of the herd to exist. It's not about being better. It's not about rising above others. It's about being loyal to yourself, even when the whole world tells you you're wrong. It's about being your own guide, even if no one understands the map you're following. You don't need your family's approval, or your friends, or your co-workers. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need to justify your existence. There's a serenity in those who know what they want. It doesn't scream. It doesn't ask to be seen. It just moves. Steady, grounded, unstoppable. You walk with quiet conviction now, even when the voices around you try to lure you back. Even when they say you've gone too far, changed too much, forgotten who you were. But you know better. You haven't forgotten. You've returned to yourself. In the end, the most powerful legacy isn't loud. It's not built on speeches or theories. It's in the silent example of those who refused to betray their own soul, the ones who said no to the herd, the ones who walked into the desert and kept walking, the ones who lived with brutal honesty, even when it cost them love, comfort, belonging, because some things are worth more than approval, and freedom is one of them. The world will keep trying to pull you back into the forest. It will call your rebellion confusion. It will call your clarity madness. But you've already seen too much. You've crossed the desert. You've endured the silence. You've faced the rejection. And now, you are your own compass. And no one can take that from you. If you felt this in your chest, if something in you refuses to go back, write this below. I don't belong to the forest anymore. Like the video. Share it with someone who's still trapped in someone else's story, and hit the bell. The next video won't be easier, just deeper.